people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It's official. On the undercard of Jordan Gill versus Zelfa Barrett in April, Rianon Dixon will be challenging for the newly vacated WBO title opposite the ring Argentina's own Karen Carabajal, instead of shooting for the newly vacated IBF. We know that an order recently came down from the IBF ordering a fight between Rianon and Caroline Dubois. And I told you, that fight wasn't going to see the light of day. Wasn't going to happen. Rianon isn't ready for it, and Caroline Dubois knows she's not ready for it. That's why she's been calling her out.
Yeah.
Whether or not you want to hold it against Rianon that she's going another route instead of fighting Caroline, Caroline may end up going another route instead of fighting Beatrice Ferreira. The pendulum swings both ways, so keep the same energy. Rianon Dixon sports a professional record of 9 wins with no losses, no draws, 1 recorded knockout. Only 1 recorded knockout, but her power is coming along. She's fast, she's athletic, and she's got some pop, but there is more work needs doing. And I don't hold that against her. She'll be opposite the ring Karen Carabajal, who comparatively has a lot more pro experience, a lot more rounds in the bank than Rianon, sporting a professional record of 21 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 3 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 22 professional bouts. That lone defeat came at the hands of Katie Taylor, and there's no shame in that. Katie was too fast and too agile for Karen. These are qualities, characteristics that Rianon Dixon also brings to the table. She's fast and athletic. She's agile. She's a southpaw. She will be facing Karen Carabajal in April. Karen, who has not 1, but 2 fights in the books. 2 fights on schedule. 1 next month opposite the ring, her countrywoman, Edith Soledad Matisse. Then 2 in Rianon Dixon in April. It is unusual, unorthodox to see a fighter schedule a fight so close to another fight, especially when the other fight is a title fight. I feel like if Karen is doing this, it's because she wants to be as sharp as she can be. Firing on all cylinders. Scheduling 2 fights this close together, especially when the second one is a title fight, it is risky in its own way, because you are risking injury that if the first fight proves to be harder than you expected it to be, or if you suffer any cuts, you won't have that much time to recover. But then you have to look at who it is Karen is going to be fighting. She's going to be fighting Edith Soledad Matisse, veteran journeywoman who's been in there with a lot of people, but at this stage in her career, all she really is for a fighter is glorified sparring session. I mean, Karen should make it through the Edith Matisse fight. It's risky scheduling those fights so close together, but it's a fight that Karen should win. She'll make it to the Dixon fight. Rianon Dixon, a southpaw. Rianon Dixon, the speedster. And it's speed, I think, that will win her this fight with Karen Carabajal, who when she fought Katie Taylor, in spite of Katie being older, she was still noticeably faster than Karen, who's long and limber for this weight. She's tall, with long arms, and I'd wager she's going to be the aggressor. She's going to be the aggressor, and Rianon will be the defender, in a manner of speaking. She's going to have to alternate between offense and defense. Karen's going to try to put pressure on her. Rianon, she can't spend the whole fight on the defensive, backpedaling or moving lateral. You do that for too long, and it's going to start to look like you're getting pushed around, like you're getting bullied. The saving grace for Rianon is she is a very fast fighter. She's got a lot of speed. Mid-range to inside, I'd wager Rianon can string a combination together better and more accurately than Karen can, because she's quick and she's got shorter arms. In close quarters, the fighter with the shorter arms can string a combination together faster than a more long and limber fighter. Karen's long and limber, but she's also aggressive, so she's going to try to close the distance on Rianon, get aggressive with her, rough her up. That's when Rianon's got to use her speed to play at the angles, slip and hook, roll and counter, hit her in the blind spots, because she punches a lot wider than Rianon does. With her speed and the fact that her punches are noticeably shorter than Karen's, she can catch her in between the shots, between the punches. She can win this fight, and it will be good experience for her because that's what Rianon needs. She's learning on the job. She's not a member of Team GB. She's not some Olympian, some amateur standout. She doesn't have that amateur pedigree to draw from like some of these other fighters, the aforementioned fighters, Caroline Dubois, Beatrice Ferreira. Rianon don't come from that, so what she's learning about boxing, she's learning on the job. She has to be allowed time to develop. It's a bit hasty to think that a fighter with only 9 professional fights is already the finished product. She isn't. We have to see if she can make it through this. We have to see if she can become a world champion. Now, once she does, if she wins that belt, if she becomes WBO champion, that's when the training wheels come off. But let's not put the cart before the horse. She's got to make it through this fight first. In men's super flyweight news, on the heels of his latest victory, Kazuto Ioka says, "I still want to fight in a unification match, win, and prove that I'm the best at this weight." Once upon a time, Ioka established himself as the best strawweight in the world. No doubt was left after his June 2012 decision win over countryman Akira Yegashi. Ioka defended his WBC title and picked up the WBA belt in the first ever unification bout between reigning champions from Japan. Ioka has since won major titles at junior flyweight, and twice at junior bantam. He attempted to unify the WBO and WBA titles versus Joshua Franco, but their initial meeting was scored a draw. After the first Franco fight, they ordered him to satisfy his mandatory challenger, unbeaten up-and-comer Junto Nakatani, at which point Kazuto vacated the WBO to pursue a rematch with Franco for his WBA, which he lifted off of him. He won the rematch. You can't accuse Junto of avoiding the other champions at this weight. You can't accuse Junto of avoiding unification matches when he made one with Joshua Franco and he tried to make another with Juan Francisco Estrada. And it was Estrada that walked away because he didn't like the money. They were in talks for a while last year to do a unification match between them for Kazuto's WBA and Juan Francisco's WBC, but things fell apart because Gallo wanted more money. And as a result of that fight's collapse, Gallo ended up sitting out all of last year, and Kazuto ended up fighting Jasper Perez instead, who he stopped in 7 rounds. He still is a champion at super flyweight, and he still has his sights set on unification matches. In his sights now are Estrada and IBF champion of Argentina, Fernando Martinez. And perhaps a rematch with his countryman, Kosei Tanaka, should Kosei win the newly vacated WBO title next month. "I am willing to fight whoever it takes to prove that I'm the best," insisted Ioka. I don't see any of the other champions at this weight, the guys with belts, pursuing unification matches as frequently as Kazuto, that he pursued one with Joshua Franco and it happened, but it was scored a draw. Right. And he tried to pursue another one with Gallo last year, but Gallo walked away. What about Fernando? Fernando Martinez of Argentina. He's got the IBF title, unbeaten guy, younger than these other guys. He was last in action in June of last year, but he seems to be isolated from everybody else because he's over there on the PBC side of things. You won't find any unification matches for a super flyweight at the PBC. So what he's doing over there, what he's still doing over there, I don't know. Maybe Kazuto should pursue him because he won't ask for as much money as Gallo? Maybe he should. There's just one problem. Kazuto is currently under orders to satisfy his mandatory challenger in Scrappy Ramirez. Scrappy that fights on the Golden Boy promotion side of things? Yeah, he's Kazuto's mandatory now. He's got a high hairline. And it makes you wonder if Kazuto should not have spent that time he spent with Gallo trying to negotiate a fight with him, trying to negotiate with Fernando, because Fernando perhaps wouldn't have asked for as much money. But Gallo is a bigger name than Fernando, so I see the logic. Why they pursued Gallo doesn't matter anymore because now Kazuto's in the hot seat. BoxingScene.com has confirmed that reigning junior bantamweight titleist Kazuto Ioka was ordered to next defend his title versus the #1 ranked contender John Scrappy Ramirez. The two sides were instructed on Friday to enter negotiations to reach terms within the next 30 days to avoid a purse bid hearing. Please consider this communication as notification notification for mandatory negotiations for the WBA Super Flyweight division. WBA Championships Committee Chairman Carlos Chavez informed both parties in an official notice obtained by Boxing Scene. Since Ioka won the title on June 24 of 2023, the next obligatory championship bout is past due from October of last year and shall box against the official contender John Scrappy Ramirez. Pursuant to WBA Rule C13, bout limitations, the champion may not fight a boxer who is not the official challenger within 60 days of the expiration of the mandatory defense period. Based on the above-mentioned facts, we hereby order a 30-day mandatory negotiation period beginning January 12th and finishing at the end of the business day on February 12th. Ioka is represented in talks by Shisei Promotions and Tralock Entertainment, while Ramirez is promoted by Golden Boy. And I'm sure that Golden Boy would much prefer that fight happen here in America under their banner than over there in Japan under
the Shisei banner. But how much are they willing to spend?
How much?
How much are they willing to pay out to bring Kazuto over to America? Because he can draw over there in Japan. He can draw pretty good. But Scrappy.
Kazuto has to be careful now. He has to be wary of what he's willing to accept from Golden Boy, because if they formulate a sizable offer to bring him over here, it's because they want to job him. It's because they want to rob him. He's better off doing that fight in Japan.
If he wants to keep his belt.
And it's not because I think that John would get robbed in Japan. No, I don't think that John would get robbed. I think that both fighters would get a fair shake in Japan. Whereas if the fight is here, under the Golden Boy Promotions banner, Kazuto may not get a fair shake. How many people did you see saying that Marlon Esparza shouldn't have won the Naoko Fujioka fight, shouldn't have won the Ibeth Zamora Silva fight, the Gabriela Alanis fight, a fight that's so close the WBA ordered a rematch? How many people did you see saying that Jaime Munguia shouldn't have got the decision in the Derevyanchenko fight?
And the Dennis Hogan fight.
Kazuto needs to be careful. He needs to be wary that even if Golden Boy Promotions can formulate a sizable offer to bring him to America, it's because they want to be able to rob him. They want to be able to job him, and they're willing to pay to do it. His best bet is to get Scrappy to come to him, because Kazuto draws better in Japan than Scrappy does in America.
It's a good fight, by the way. Scrappy's a good fighter. He's entertaining, unbeaten guy. But if Kazuto wants to get a fair shake, should the fight go to the cards? Should it go the distance? He's better off doing it in his own neck of the woods than traveling to Scrappy's.
If he wants to unify and he wants to keep that dream alive, he's got to stay champion, and he may not be able to do that if he comes here.
And he's 34 years old now. That's old for a super flyweight, so he's got to be careful.
And finally, heavyweight danger man Francis Ngannou sends message to Wilder ahead of a Joshua clash. He would be wise to focus on the man in front of him instead of the one he means to get to. We don't know what's going to happen in the Joshua fight, but if Joshua does the demolition job on him that he just did on Otto Wallin, does he even make it to a Wilder fight? The 37-year-old will fight for just the second time as a professional boxer after shocking the world when he dropped Tyson Fury en route to a controversial split decision defeat in October. The former UFC heavyweight champion was linked to an MMA bout with the Bronze Bomber after signing up to the PFL following his split from the UFC, but he remains keen to face the Alabama man in a boxing ring. I'm here for the boxing career, and there I have a lot of challenges, a lot of names, Ngannou told Sky Sports.
Wants to fight Wilder, but if he loses to AJ, how does that affect a potential Wilder fight moving forward? He will be 0-2 as a boxer if he loses to AJ.
It's the commercial viability of an Ngannou versus Wilder fight. If that happens, that is a legitimate question. Francis Ngannou continued, for example, the top three guys that I've always had are Fury, Joshua, and Wilder. Wilder better get it together because I'm not done. I want that name on my record. 2 months ago, we were talking about fighting Deontay Wilder in the PFL. That landscape can change quick. everything is possible.
Francis Ngannou making it past Anthony Joshua is one thing, and Deontay Wilder even returning to the sport of boxing is yet another.
Wilder, who suffered his third defeat against Parker, looked out of sorts, only landing 39 punches over the course of his 12-round points loss. The 38-year-old former WBC champion hinted in the immediate aftermath that he could call time on his 15-year career, but later vowed to reclaim the heavyweight championship. "I've got to find my killer instinct back," he told 78 Sports. "I'm too at peace. I'm too happy. When I had that dog in me, nobody had a chance. I will be a two-time heavyweight champion," as if to say that he no longer has the dog in him anymore.
Where'd the dog go? Before he lost to Joseph Parker, didn't he flatline Robert Helenius in just one round?
What the hell could have happened to Wilder between the Robert Helenius fight and the Parker fight that would have caused the dog he had in him to disappear? And there were reports that Deontay Wilder was going to try out ayahuasca, a psychedelic drug that is intended to help the user reach some sort of catharsis with an internal conflict. One might speculate that in taking this psychedelic or psychotropic drug, it may have extinguished what remaining fire Deontay had in the belly. That's one way to look at it.
It's one.
Another way to look at it is that Wilder was always a limited fighter, which I've said many times myself. And knocking out your old sparring partner in one round and facing a former champion like yourself, well, those are two very different things.
Could be as simple as you were never that good to begin with, and once again, when you stepped up in competition, you were exposed. You got beat.
May not be much of a mystery at all. Joseph Parker, when you think about it, he's been in there with more of the who's who guys in this era than Deontay Wilder has.
Can he beat Francis Ngannou?
To even attempt to answer that question would rely on the premise that irrespective of what happens between Anthony and Francis, a fight between Francis and Wilder can still happen. And if we bounce those ideas around, Francis, he's a very big guy. I think he weighed in for the Fury fight at about 275 pounds. And we see how the weight is distributed. It's evenly. He's a hulking mass of a man, whereas Deontay Wilder's a lot more slinky, a lot more wiry, and he's weighed as low as 215 pounds. Given that he's not feeling that confident in himself, and he only landed 39 punches.
Wilder was always economic. He never had much of a work rate, even in his younger days. But these days, he's throwing even less.
Yes.
Landing even less.
Yes.
And he can't rely on the right hand anymore.
He's coming off a loss. He's down in the dumps. And Francis still wants him. Whether or not he can beat Francis, to me, seems like a legitimate question. He's not in the right headspace, and this is the hurt business. That's dangerous, because even a great physical specimen, even a great fighter, if he's not in the right headspace and he's in that ring, he could get himself hurt real bad. And I know that Francis is a novice, but Wilder's
not exactly Pernell Whitaker. He ain't got fundamentals and skills to fall back on.
His bread and butter was never his boxing. He was always a one-handed fighter. And if you ain't got the confidence to throw that hand anymore, that big right hand, there is a noticeable discrepancy in the weight between the fighters. So Wilder can't hope to overpower him. And if you're not going to let go of your right hand,
you're fucked.
He might beat you, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.